Hello everyone, so this will be a long video. I have a few things to talk about over the past few months. And today, this news tonight is that two Green Party TDs have voted against the government. And as you know, if you vote against your government, you get kicked out for 6 months basically. And one question, simple question I have to ask, where's the democracy in that? That people can have their own say. And again, these two TDs, Green Party TDs, don't entitled their opinion, whatever they agree with. I don't think a party should say you should vote for that. I suppose, in a way, it's up to that TD, it's up to them to talk to the constituencies and see what their people in their constituency want. I don't think Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and the Green Party should be dictating to people what they vote for and what they don't vote for. And that's just my view. If I was the head of a party, I would let people vote whichever way they wanted, because again, it's their own choice, it's their own opinion, and above all else, it's up to the constituencies. Take for example Patrick Costello. I think he's a Dublin Southwest TD, isn't he? He's a Chew's husband, I think, isn't it? The former Lord Mayor. And Nice Hogan, sorry, I keep saying her name wrong. The two TDs that voted against this. And don't get me started with the National Maternity Hospital. It's a rigmarole. I don't really understand it, to be totally honest. There's so much happening. But what I will say, the state should own the hospital, first of all. It's every public building should be owned by the people, the Irish people, the taxpayer. And it should be owned on land that is owned by the state. And I think it should be a simple thing, the state should buy it. Simple as that. I don't know what the rigmarole was about, to be totally honest. That's just me, that's just what I think. I believe that all public buildings is owned by the people of Ireland, regardless of the council offices, whatever. They're owned by the taxpayer, you and I own them. Instead of any private corporation owning them or anything like that. But I just want to say, and particularly, again, the next thing I'm bringing up here, where's the democracy? A few months ago actually, there was a vote on the turf. And now this is going to be a thing rural TDs and Fianna Fáil TDs and Fine Gael TDs are going to get on the doorstep when they go around to the next election. They will have people given out to them in rural Ireland. Again, there was a few rural TDs in Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, which I thought would vote against the government because it's their interest, because the people of their constituency in a rural part of Ireland wouldn't be too fond of what they did. And voting for the carbon tax, people wouldn't be too fond of that. And they should have thought about that. They would have been more liked if they said no, and if they stood up and said no. But nobody did. No, not one of them stood up and said no. And all the rural TDs in Fianna Fáil that take for example in rural Ireland, not one of them stood up and said no. I won't accept this. But as I say, there shouldn't be a thing where you'd be suspended from the party if you vote against their guidelines or whatever. Again, it's up, as I see it, it's up to your constituency, the people of your constituency, to say to you what they think is best. Because again, you represent the people, you don't represent yourself. But in a certain degree, it's up to the TD in their own mind to make up their own mind too. They listen to the public feedback from the constituents to see what they think, and you listen to the conversation. And I think that's just undermining democracy, because again, they should be allowed to vote whatever way they want. And that's my opinion. That's true democracy. People are not bullied into it, because again, it's kind of you have a gun to your head in Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil and Green Party, and you have to do it that way. If you don't do it that way, you're kicked out. As we've seen here today, it's bully boy tactics really. But yeah, they will suffer, and I did say that to some of them in Oakland, Fianna Fáil. I was talking to a few of them in Oakland, Fianna Fáil. They will suffer. Fianna Fáil will suffer very heavily in the next election. Rural Ireland will be demolished in rural Ireland. Because of the tough to be demolished in rural Ireland. They better not go around to some places in Fianna Fáil, because people will be not very pleased with them. And they won't be pleased with the Green Party either, or Fine Gael. And they need to understand that. And I did take, and I honestly did take in my mind, there were a few of them in Fianna Fáil would stood up and walked out with the tough, but none of them did. They didn't. And people would have been more happy with them walking out and standing up and saying no. It's a simple word, but it's a hard word to say. But I do think people should be allowed to vote whatever way they want, regardless of the party. And I do think it's an emphasis on what your constituency says. The people in your constituency, take Cavan and Monaghan. The people of Cavan and Monaghan should have a say in what their TDs take. And as I say, even the Emergency Powers Acts that were put in, and the Segregation Acts, demonising people for not having a certain thing. For going into buildings. Again, that's segregation at the highest level. And how that passed in the Irish Parliament and the both houses of the Oireachtas is beyond me and was signed into law. Apartheid basically, and that was signed in, and not one Fianna Fáil TD stood up and said no, this is not right. And I'm sure you would agree it wasn't right. It was just causing more it was causing more strain and more hurt in society than anything else, than protecting people's health. It was causing more anxiety and causing more hurt, than anything else in society. And I'm sure they should have knew that. And Fianna Fáil, I'm sure some of them Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, would have voted against only for they were afraid of what could happen if they didn't vote for it, if they didn't fall in line. But yeah, that's the way I see it, and it's bully boy tactics at the highest level, because that's the way I see democracy. You know, you're entitled to your opinion, and especially when you're a TD or a senator, your opinion has to be based on the public's opinion, because again, the public tell you what they want. It's not that if you want something, you can't do it unless the public say. Basically, when you're a TD or senator, you ask the public how high do they want you to jump, and then you jump how high they want you to jump. Basically, you can't do anything without the public telling you what they want. You can't just go off on your own whim and do whatever you want. And obviously this thing, as I say, that should be the way. They go to the constituencies, and they say, look at what do you think of this, and get feedback from the constituency and make up their own mind then. But none of that's ever done. None of them ever go knocking around to see what they take of this legislation or that legislation. And no feedback is given, no suggestions are bringing from the general public. And only members of the public could have a good idea. They could make better legislation, make better laws, make better society. But nothing's ever sought by only members of the public, by the peasants, as they probably would call us in the Oireachtas. But let me know what you think. Again, as I say, I don't know much about the National Maternity Hospital. It's a big rigmarole, but the only thing I say, and I reiterated, it should be owned by the state, and it should be on state land, because it should be owned by the taxpayer, whatever kind of hospital it is, and it should not be private or owned by any organisation. It should be owned by the state, the Irish people. That's the way I see state buildings and things. They should be owned by the taxpayer. Thank you.